those kind of things too, because they're all essential to health. And so with our patients, we see a lot of patients that have seen really good results with being on a ketogenic diet, anywhere from people with ALS, with anxiety issues, cancer, weight loss for both men and women, and all kids with epilepsy, even adults with epilepsy. So we see good results, and we've known this for a long time, or we as in the scientific community have known that, it hasn't been well known, but people have known that being in ketosis can help these things, especially epilepsy. That's one of the first things that drove research into the ketogenic diet. So that's why I like it so much, and that's why I've been so interested. So I know the benefits. I see the benefits clinically, and so that made me want to do a lot of research on why that is. So so I looked up, found research from some really smart people that are doing this research every day, and one of those people is down here at the bottom, Dominic D'Agostino. He's a PhD at University of Southern Florida, Morsani College of Education. This is what he does. He researches ketosis. He's brought it mainstream. He actually gets funded by the military, the government, to do these research, these studies. So it's something that people are looking into, and we're learning a lot more. We've got a lot of good information on it now. So I just kind of want to jump into it. So down here at the bottom, if you want to know more information about all the applications of the ketogenic diet and the science behind it even more in depth, I would recommend going to ketonutrition.org, and looking up some of his stuff. So first I want to talk about what nutritional ketosis is, because that's the goal of a ketogenic diet, is to get in nutritional ketosis. So when you're eating the standard American diet, which is a lot of carbohydrates throughout the day, so a breakfast, a snack, a lunch, a snack, a dinner, we are constantly being fed carbohydrates in the form of sugar or in the forms of things like bread, potatoes, those kind of things that turn directly to sugar in our body. And so our body burns carbohydrates for fuel, and it's very simple and easy and quick to do that. So that's what, if you have sugar in your diet, that's what your body's going to burn glucose. It's easy. So carbohydrate restriction, it mimics the state of fasting, and it brings down your insulin. It suppresses your insulin. Because whenever you take in a carbohydrate, your pancreas pumps out insulin, and what that insulin does is tells the cells, okay, now it's time for you to take up the sugar out of the bloodstream and use it for fuel. So when you, let's say for fasting, for instance, it gets you into ketosis. When you're fasting, you're not taking in any carbohydrates, anything. So your insulin levels get suppressed, and so our bodies, when you don't have carbohydrates to use as fuel that we're taking in and we burn through our glycogen, our body starts mobilizing fats, our stored fats, for energy. So for the most part, our bodies do use fatty acids really, really well. But the one system in our body that doesn't use fatty acids well is our brains, our central nervous systems, which is pretty important, right? So what happens is when our liver starts to accumulate all these fatty acids, say if we're in a fasting state, we've been even fasting for about 3 days, we start doing this. So our liver starts to accumulate all these fatty acids to use for metabolism. So then you start producing ketone bodies, and so these ketone bodies build up, then they start spilling over to the blood, and that's when your brain can use those ketone bodies for energy. So yes, the brain needs glucose, but in the absence of glucose, it can use ketone bodies, and it does it really well, and it functions really well using ketone bodies instead of glucose for energy. So it's not the no glucose, it's the suppression of insulin that drives that ketogenesis in the liver. So when you're in ketosis and you have all these ketones in your body and your blood glucose levels are low, now you start we're training our body to burn our fat for fuel. So we talk a lot about, in our office at least, we've got to turn from a sugar burner to a fat burner. And so if you are a sugar burner, if what you eat is constantly carbohydrates, standard American diet, we're constantly feeding 6 small meals throughout the day, we're not really well equipped to burn fat for fuel. So this is there's multiple applications, but getting your body into ketosis and keeping it there is training our body to be able to burn fat for fuel. So when we do that, there's a lot of applications, but this is something we've been doing since we were created. So there was times when there wasn't food to eat, right? And so we had to start burning our fat for fuel. So, or during winters or droughts. So this was built into us. We're supposed to go through these kind of states of low eating, low food, calorie restriction can cause you to get into ketosis too. So we're built for this. This isn't an abnormal thing. This is a normal thing that our bodies are supposed to go through. So does that make sense, kind of what ketosis is?
Yeah, I read an article today actually, about 10,000 years ago is about when the agricultural age in our society started, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, it's been slowly downhill. Prior to that, human beings mainly lived off in the wild, pretty much, and they had to hunt and gather, as the old saying goes, and every day to survive, and they were mainly fat consumers. They mainly ate a lot of fat in their diet. And our bodies really are designed DNA-wise to utilize fat more efficiently than a lot of high starch. Is that correct?
Yeah, also, so there's definitely some cultures that thrive on mainly fat, like up north in Alaska when they used to just eat whale blubber, so there's some cultures that still do eat mainly fat, and they do very, very well. And there's low incidence of heart disease and cancer and those kind of things too. So yeah, but ketosis, the ketogenic diet, the goal of it is to kind of mimic a fasting state. So when you're in the fasting state, that's when those ketone bodies get up the fastest, really. But the problem is you can't sustain that because you've got to eat. So one of the ways you can mimic the nutritional ketosis is through a high-fat, low carbohydrate, low protein diet. So if we're talking what the real ketogenic diet is, it's about 4-to-1. So 4 fats to 1 carbohydrate protein. Or if you want to do percentage-wise, which is a little bit easier, 85 to 90% fat is what you should be taking on a classic ketogenic diet.
Yeah, let me ask you a quick question here. Now, you just said high fat and I think you said low protein, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now see, a lot of people today believe you should eat, in order to be healthier, if you're looking at a low carb, you should eat higher protein and higher fat in combination. Could you kind of just...
Yes, so once you get into ketosis, and because sometimes it can take a long time to actually get into nutritional ketosis, so once you actually get into ketosis and you're fat adapted, you're able to burn fat for fuel efficiently, then yes, you can bring up the amount of protein. But to actually get into ketosis, I would recommend, it's good to do the ketogenic diet, the traditional way. But yeah, so I'm going to get into more when it's appropriate to add that stuff back in, especially when we start talking about athletes and wanting to build muscle. That's really important, and something that's to keep it long term. But that's something I definitely want to get into. But I want to talk. We talked a little bit about it, but these are all things that people use in nutritional ketosis for. So epilepsy. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about this because it's probably not a lot of people that are on here to learn about epilepsy and nutritional ketosis. If you are or know someone who's interested, I recommend looking up Eric Kossoff's. He's an MD at Johns Hopkins, and this is all he does. This is what he works with, nutritional ketosis for kids with epilepsy. So I would look up if Alzheimer's is, considered type 3 diabetic. So this obviously helps a lot with that. ALS, anxiety, weight loss and management, and cancer prevention in the sports community, so endurance athletes, powerlifting, and then also concussion. So I want to get into, I really want to start off because I think what a lot of people are probably pretty interested in is how you can eat so much fat and, sorry, I went too far, how you can eat so much fat and still lose weight. So I kind of talked about it, but the first time you're getting into ketosis can take a while. So it can take up to even 1 to 3 months to get into full ketosis. And that's because you got to go through this fat adaptive phase where, and that's what I'm talking about, where that's where your body starts upregulating the transporters for your tissues to use ketones for fuel. So start training your body to use these ketones, and it's when you start upregulating the ketogenic enzymes in your liver to start producing these things more efficiently. So once you go through this, and that's when you actually get into ketosis. So when you're getting about, say, when you're monitoring your blood, you're getting about 1 millimolar of ketones, I think is what they recommend to get into ketosis. That's when you're kind of out of that fat adaptive phase. And so once you're in full ketosis, that's when you can kind of jump out of ketosis and get back in. So a little bit faster. And so every time you do that, you get in faster. I know Dr. Dom, he can get out of ketosis, go have sushi one night, he was talking about, and get out of ketosis, and then the next day, about like 2, he can be back in ketosis. So it's something you're training your body to do, to where, okay, I can be efficient at burning carbohydrates for fuel, but I can also be efficient at burning fat for fuel, because most people aren't fat adapted. Most people can't do that. So that's one of the biggest goals with the ketogenic diet and nutritional ketosis with weight management. So one thing that I hear some practitioners and coaches say is that don't count calories. It's not about that. It's just about the kind of food you eat. But that's just not true, especially in this first beginning few phases when you're getting fat adapted. You still have to watch what you take in. So I can't eat. And the problem with ketogenic foods is they're very calorie dense, right? Because you're taking in a lot of fats, which is calorie dense. So the same amount of calories that are in a handful of cashews, you can get a whole bunch of fruit and a whole bunch of rice. So you just got to be careful when you're transitioning over. And some people don't worry about calories while you're transitioning, so it's not so bad. But I would say just go for it and calorie restrict. But so in the beginning parts, it might be hard. But so when you have, the good news is that when you're not taking in glucose and insulin, when you're taking those in, you're constantly, it's a quick thing. So you burn those off really quick, and then your brain's like, okay, I need more fuel, and that's when you get these a stress response, your cortisol levels go up, and that's when you start binging on this disgusting food, the processed foods. So without those ups and downs of glucose and insulin levels, you're not going to have the same food cravings that you would on a high carb diet. So that's one thing. That's great, but you just got to stick through it. You got to get through these beginning phases. But also another thing is when you're on a high carb diet, your gut flora changes, and so you have all this gut flora that needs sugar, needs starches. So when you're not feeding it these sugars, carbs, it's going to make you really hungry and crave those things. So you have to push through this first phase, and I'm not saying it takes 3 months. A lot of people, it only takes like a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something like this. It doesn't always take a month to get through that. So I don't want that to deter people to get through it.
Right.
Because once you get the ketone levels up, your ketones are going to decrease your appetite. You're just not as hungry all the time, because when you're burning fat for fuel efficiently, that's not something that goes up and down throughout the day while you're eating. Well, it might throughout the day, but as much sharply as taking in sugar and grains. So you're getting this constant fuel source to your brain. So your brain's never in this starvation mode, and you're not going to have these crazy cravings that you would normally. So a lot of times people who are completely fat adapted and in ketosis, they can have a good fatty, good protein, and a vegetable for breakfast and not really be hungry and not crave anything until dinner. So, and that becomes very, very common.
So no more
once you're in ketosis.
no more waffles and French toast and pancakes, huh?
Yeah, unless you can. I'm sure there's moms that have kids on the ketogenic diet that have a recipe out there somewhere you can go look to, and go look up his website for that. But I'm sure someone have it. People are so good with recipes, so I'm sure they have ketogenic foods that are like that for kids. But yeah, you're going to have a switch.
Okay, let me ask a quick question. Okay, what about what about a person that would use, let's say, almond flour or coconut flour?
Yeah. Just obviously want to make sure it's a good source, but coconut flour is great. It's really high in fat, but Almond flour is very high in protein,
Uh-huh.
so which could be really good if once you get into ketosis and you can maintain ketosis better. That would be a good thing to do. Um, but yeah, coconut flour for sure.
Okay.
So I'm going to get into some more foods in a little bit because there are some things that can help with this. But one thing, so it will take your appetite down, but a lot of people aren't just eating because they're hungry or they have cravings. They're eating because they're emotional eaters or they're bored or they're just, it's habit.
I know a few of
So
those.
I know a few of those, and you're talking to one right now. So um, you don't.
Yeah.
It's not something you. Sometimes people still have to eat calories or count calories and watch what they're eating. I love my FitnessPal app because what it does, you can just put in. It's really fast. Put in what you're eating throughout the day, and then it'll give you a pie graph of how much, what percentage of fats, what percentage of protein, and what percentage of carbohydrates as you go through your day, so you can kind of monitor it. So if you don't have my FitnessPal, that would be a great thing to do, especially in the beginning while you're getting used to how much fat's in all these foods. So I would recommend that. So there are some ways to get through the glucose withdrawal in the beginning, and one of the best and easiest ways to do it is use medium chain triglyceride oils. There's a couple different versions. These help get ketones into your body really, really fast. So this helps with, like, coconut oil is the one that's the most readily available. I have a bottle right here by my desk right now. I just took a gulp of it before we started.
All right.
So yeah,
Feed the
my
brain.
sister was like, I'm out of here. It's gross, but yeah, that's one way to do it. Another way is Quest Nutrition. They came out with some MCT powders, which have a little bit higher concentration of, there's different medium chain triglycerides. So you have caprylic acid, which is C8, which is the best version, but it's not very palatable. You have C10, which is capric acid, which is good, and then you have lauric acid. Lauric acid is what coconut oil is mainly made up of. It's not the most efficient for it, but it does a good job. But coconut oil also has a little bit of C8 and a little bit of C10, so it is good, but there are also better ones. Now, so I would recommend the Quest Nutrition MCT powder to help you get through this beginning of phases, but also you can just do that throughout the day. Like if you're hungry or something, this can help with that. And also, have you heard of bulletproof coffee?
I've heard of it. I don't.
It's kind of popular.
I'm not a coffee drinker, but
You're not a coffee drinker,
no.
okay. Weirdo. But anyway, so Bulletproof Coffee, the guy who runs that, he is really big into nutritional ketosis, and he came up with an oil called Brain Octane, which is like almost pure C8. And I heard it doesn't taste good, so I'm nervous to get it, but I heard it works really, really well. Or they have an MCT oil, which is one notch down. So it's like coconut oil, MCT oil, and then Brain Octane. So those are the things I would recommend to get you through that, get you into ketosis faster. One, I think a good way to get you into ketosis is just fasting. Fasting, water fasting. I'm not talking juice fasting. I'm talking water fasting. Or you can fast and then do tablespoons of coconut oil or your MCT oil, or like bone broth, fatty bone broth that you make yourself, or it's grass-fed.
Right.
That can get you in ketosis. So that's the fastest way, and then slowly start, and then once you come out of that, just transition into a ketogenic diet. And what's so good about doing it by fasting first is it helps getting you there metabolically faster, but it also gets rid of your dependence on food or your obsession with food. So a lot of people just feel like, okay, I need a meal prep, I need to prep my meals, I need to do all this stuff. It's food, food, food. That's all we think throughout the day. Well, when you're fasting, you take that away and you get used to that. So then when you transition to a ketogenic diet, it's a much easier transition. So
Give me an example.
Also,
Give me an example of what you recommend for fasting, just intermittent fasting. Just a quick.
yeah, so intermittent fasting is a good way to do it too, but it's a little bit different than real fasting. So let me just say another thing I love about fasting is that it gives your gut a chance to heal and repair your small intestine. So with the standard American diet, we are just ruining our gut. So it lets your gut completely heal, rest, repair, and heal. So then when you start eating again, you're better able to absorb food. The gap junctions in our small intestine are closer together, so you're not letting these big undigested particles through there causing systemic inflammation. I definitely recommend, if you haven't looked into fasting, to look into it. We've been doing it, people have been doing it since the beginning of time. So, but intermittent fasting is a great way to get into ketosis too. And so intermittent fasting is like eating one meal a day, or eating between like 1 and 6 each day. So you have like an 18-hour period where you're not eating anything, or if you wake up you have like some coconut oil, MCT oil powder, something like that, but you're in a fasted state, which can help you get into ketosis too.
Okay.
Anything? What do you? I mean, do you have anything else to add on?
Well, I know I've read about people fasting for 3 or 4 days at a time, and that's pretty aggressive for the average person. So
yes and no.
Okay.
It is. I agree that it sounds really aggressive, because we're food obsessed. We're food obsessed, so it seems really aggressive, but it's completely normal, and our bodies are meant to do that. So
let's just say
yes, I mean it is culturally
culture,
and socially it is tough. It sounds crazy. Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
But it's good though, right?
Oh, it's great. It's awesome. I definitely recommend doing it if you haven't done it. But just be prepared. I mean, you're going to be craving food those first 3 days with doing it for sure. But so an intermittent fasting is kind of the same thing, but not to this extreme. So if you want to start testing out fasting, try that. And like one of the good ways of trying fasting first, instead of going straight 3 days water fasting or 4 days water fasting, is doing like, okay, a Sunday night stop eating or Sunday stop eating at 2, and then don't eat again until 2 p.m. the next day. So you get 24 hours of fasting, but you're still getting a meal in. So that's a good way to start fasting too.
Okay.
Yeah. So I want to talk about one of the things ketosis is really good for is inflammation. And we know that chronic inflammation is one of the biggest drivers, or is the basis or a big driver of almost every disease process that we have. Heart disease, cancer, diabetes. I mean, all these things we can look back, and inflammation is a big issue. So one thing that the ketogenic diet does is it lowers your inflammatory mediators by reducing glucose. So when your blood glucose is constantly high, you have this really high hyperglycemic blood glucose levels, sugar in your blood, it's very, very pro-inflammatory. So that's really inflammatory, but the biggest reason is because these high insulin levels are very, very inflammatory. So being in ketosis, you obviously reduce your glucose, which lowers your insulin, which lowers your insulin signaling pathways. And those insulin signaling pathways, those are what trigger inflammatory pathways. So when we're in ketosis, we are decreasing inflammation in our body drastically. And not just like in our bloodstream, or not just in our gut, in our brains as well. So we're finding this to be really helpful for like brain injuries, or where you need to get the inflammation down, but you need to feed the brain and get it metabolically working fast. We're finding that ketogenic diet is a great tool for that. So for you, Roberto, one of the biggest things in football is concussions, and that's a big hot topic right now. And this is being in ketosis is great for kids that are in football. Now,
Okay,
granted,
I want to follow up on that, because that's a big topic. So
yeah.
let's get a little bit in detail on that. So when you're in ketosis, how does that specifically improve the brain's durability towards concussion? Because I know that when you're on a high glucose diet, the brain actually starts to lose some of its viability, because it loses, it almost becomes dried up. It's not as moist. You become dry brain. It starts to shrink. It starts to atrophy, so to speak. So does a ketogenic diet, will that improve the density of the brain? A little bit more detail on that.
Gosh, I can't say that I haven't read any studies about the density of the brain. I haven't read that, but what I have read is that, I mean, we know that being in nutritional ketosis and high blood ketone levels is very, very neuroprotective. We see that it helps with ALS, which is a nervous system disease. We got Alzheimer's, concussions, anxiety. We know epilepsy. I mean, we know that it helps with that. It's very neuroprotective.
Uh-huh.
So let's just take concussions for instance. So concussions result in a decrease in brain energy metabolism. So the faster that you can restore brain energy metabolism, the faster the brain can actually help to repair itself. And that happens in a very critical window. So right after that happens. So if you're fat adapted and you can go into ketosis fast, this is really helpful for football players or any kind of brain injury to help you get that way fast. So, and you want to do it in a way, and you want to fix the brain energy metabolism in a way that decreases inflammation, and the ketogenic diet is one of the best ways to do that. It helps a lot with that. So does that
Okay.
kind of answer your
Okay. Yeah,
question?
well,
I
because
mean, it's,
I have this book by Dr. David Perlmutter who talks a lot about.
yeah.
Uh, and he's a neurologist. He talks a lot about the brain and food and everything. And man,
Mm-hmm.
he's really into the neurological aspect of it. And he was stating that actually when you're eating too much sugar in your diet, your body becomes too much glucose dominant. The brain actually can atrophy. So
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't read that, but I mean, I don't doubt it. Good. So I really wanted to talk about, and I know some of your people would be very interested in the ketogenic diet and the athlete. And so Jacob Wilson's lab down at the University of Tampa, they've been doing studies on this, and they've been doing studies on like advanced athletes, like power lifters or long endurance athletes, and I'm talking like Ironman triathletes, these kind of athletes. And what they found was, because people think that when you're in a ketogenic diet or when you're in ketosis, that you're not going to be building muscle, you're not going to be able to build muscle, and they found the exact opposite, so that you're actually, you can build muscle and you're actually more adapted to do long endurance exercises longer. So what they did was they did about 8 weeks of training in ketosis. And I'm talking when you're an athlete and and I'm not talking about the weekend warrior, I'm talking about people who go to your gym every day, or people who are working out hard every single day. They can still be in ketosis while eating more and more like a modified paleo or a modified Atkins diet. And so the difference between true ketogenic diet and the modified Atkins diet is that you just add in more protein. Right, so your fats would be more of about 60 to 75% fat, and then 20 to 25% or 20 to 30% protein. So you add in more because sometimes that helps just build more muscle if they need it. If you're like a power lifter or something like that. But you can still do that and still be in ketosis. So unless you're doing that, you're probably, if you eat a modified Atkins, you're probably going to slip out of ketosis. So one way you can monitor it and make sure that you're still in ketosis is that, well, one way without a monitor is your breath smells a little like sweet, which is a pretty unreliable way of doing it, or you can get a blood ketone monitor and order them online. I've been looking for them here. Just like they say you can get them at CVS's and stuff, but you can't really, not really. You can't find them. So you got to order online. So there's a couple of different versions that are the best. So the Precision Extra is made by Abbott Labs, and I've heard that one's the best. It monitors blood glucose and blood ketones. So you can't just go to in CVS and get a Precision monitor, because most of them just do glucose, so you got to make sure that it tests glucose and ketones. So the monitor is not that expensive, about $20, but the strips are about 100 for 100
okay, now
strips.
on the monitor, now there's some people who want to ask you some questions in the show. I want to get to that in a second. On the
Yeah.
monitors, I read you have a monitor that you can take via your breath, via blood, and via urine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you rank
Yeah.
those? Which one is got? I know the blood is the most expensive because the strips are very costly. The breath is the least expensive. So would the urine be kind of in the middle? Because I kind of
Yeah,
read that.
exactly. So the blood is going to be the best, and really it's not too, I mean, I don't think that's that expensive to be able to know what your blood glucose level is and even your ketone levels are. And it's not like you're doing this a ton throughout the day. You can check it a couple times a day, or it depends on how serious you are about being in ketosis. Or
Okay.
So I would recommend just getting the blood one. That's going to be, if you're going to spend the money, might as well spend the money on something that works good. So then it's urine, and then it's the breath. And I know they're working on trying to make the breath one more reliable, but I just don't know if that's
Okay.
happened yet.
We
So
got some questions here from Joel
yeah,
Berg, my man Joel. Are you saying
Angel.
nothing? Are you saying nothing but water while you are fasting? Real fasting?
Yeah, real fasting is nothing but water. But I would, I would be doing like a tablespoon of coconut oil throughout the day if it gets bad and I can't take it anymore, or an MCT oil, or even sipping on bone broth
Uh-huh.
that's grass-fed throughout the day. But yeah, I would say definitely just water or those things.
Okay. And we have another question from Neil Pokulski. I think that this is actually Tiffany. Do you have a sample meal plan for nutritional ketosis? I think you might go over that a little bit at the end of the presentation, right?
Yep,
Okay.
yep. I'm going to get into that here in a second because I know
Okay.
that's what probably people are
Okay.
concerned
Okay.
with.
And let's see, there's another one here. Can you give some examples of keto foods? Once again, it's pretty much the she's gonna do that
Yeah,
at
yeah.
the
Let's go ahead and get to it then.
Okay.
Um, Perfect. Next slide. So there are. We said we were going to talk about the cons of the ketogenic diet,
Right.
and what the research is really showing, the cons that some people who are concerned about is like thyroid function and mineral deficiency. But what they've been finding is it's not so much the diet and the ketogenic diet, it's more the kinds of foods that they're eating. So what kind of fats are you eating? This isn't a diet where you can just go and eat margarine or tablespoons of margarine or fried whatever, damaged fats, vegetable oil, things like that. You have to stay away from. That's going to cause inflammation in your body. So you have to get good fats, good sources of fats. And then we don't see the thyroid dysfunction. We're not seeing, and these are people who are in ketosis for, a long time, eating the bad fats. So like Dr. Dom D'Agostino, he's been in ketosis for years, straight ketosis, and
Oh,
he
wow.
measures his blood more than anybody I've ever heard of. So he knows, he says it's all about the food choices. So these are kind of fats that you need to load up with. So avocados, avocado oil, nuts like macadamia nuts, and with nuts you want to make sure that so there's a system with nuts. There's awful, stay away from it, then there's the ideal. So the awful is nuts fried in oil.
Mm-hmm.
You want to stay away from those, or baked in oil. So when you turn around and you look at the ingredients, you need to make sure it just says almonds or just macadamia nuts. So then there's the worst is nuts baked and fried and cooked in oil. The next one is dry roasted. That's a little bit better, but you're still cooking those proteins and denaturing them. So you want to do that at a minimum. And then raw is really good. And then the best is sprouted nuts and seeds. Sprouted just helps turn on some enzymes that help your body better digest them. So here in the Lee Summit Independence area, or Blue Springs area, up at Terra, which is a health food market just north of 70
Yeah, place
in
over in the Independence
Independence.
Center, yeah.
Yeah, they have a wall of nuts, and a lot of them are sprouted already, and because it's a real pain to sprout your own nuts. So I would go there and stock up. But nuts are a great source. Eggs with the yolk. So you just want to watch your protein when you're first getting into it, but then once you're fat adapted and you're in ketosis, you're going to be able to add in more protein, 20, 25%, no problem.
Isn't it
So
amazing that
eggs,
years ago they said eggs without the yolk, just egg whites?
We were so we were so misinformed. I mean, we were talking about this the other day that the the way that all started was some guy who is a PhD, but he's got his degree in like economics and fish socialization or something, and then
Yes.
he went. It was ridiculous. That's how it all started, and then it just became dogma, and we're so focused on that that it's hard to get out of it, but it is happening. I mean, the science is just built. It's too much for people to ignore now, that fat does not make you fat. Fat doesn't raise your cholesterol. Fat doesn't, I mean, good fat. Now, bad fat, trans fats, hydrogenated oils, absolutely. That's going to cause inflammation, which is going to cause increase in your blood lipids and triglycerides and that kind of stuff, and bad cholesterol.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it's dumb. So olive oil, but you want to make sure you get a good olive oil. Make sure that here in the area, at least if there's a place called Heavenly Olive Oils that has really high quality olive oils. But when you're at the grocery store, you want to look back at the ingredients, because a lot of times when it says olive oil, it'll say, yeah, there's some olive oil in there, and then there's soybean oil, and then there's, vegetable oil. So make sure it's a good pure olive oil. And remember, olive oil, all oils are good until they turn rancid. So you want to make sure that you smell it. If it smells bad, it's not good. It's gone rancid, so it turns a good oil into a really bad oil, a damaging oil for you. So olive oil, coconut oil, obviously. Coconut oil, olive oil you don't want to cook with because it has a low burn temperature, so you want to just put that on salads, drench your salads in it, but you want to cook with things like coconut oil, or avocado oil is a little bit higher too.
Or butter.
Or pure, yeah, absolutely. Pure butter, just make sure it's grass-fed butter, but yeah, load up on it.
Right.
But you want to make sure you're not getting all your fat source from butter or from animal fats, which are all good, but you just want to mix them together. You just want to make sure there's a good mix between animal fats and then like avocado, coconut oil, olive oils, those kind of things. But then fatty fish. So they found that, especially when we talk about the cons, one of the big things that helps deter the quote-unquote cons of like thyroid function, mineral deficiency, is just adding in either a DHA or a fatty fish. So the DHA supplement, but fatty fish like salmon, sardines, like you get sardines, canned sardines packed in olive oil is a great ketogenic food. Mackerel, trout, tuna, those are all good examples of fatty fish that are really good for the ketogenic diet. And then like we said, grass-fed beef and butter. Grass-fed beef, if you only have money to do one or two, like one thing organic in your diet, it has to be the meat and the meat sources that you eat, because it makes the biggest difference. So grass-fed beef, whenever you start feeding a cow corn, you change the fatty acid profile. So you're no longer getting a good healthy fat, you're now getting a very pro-inflammatory fat. So like let's just say grass-fed beef has a 2-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3s, which is what it should be. That's how it, what's very good for our body. Now a corn or a grain-fed cattle or beef, it is more of like, it can be like 50-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3. So omega-6, when it's not in a good ratio with omega-3s, it becomes very, very inflammatory. So all these studies saying red meat is so bad for you, you got to look at what that meat was, how it was being raised, and you'll find that a lot of it was corn-fed, grain-fed, and
Right.
I mean, listen, I grew up with a bunch of farmers, a family that's farmers, so this is what it is. The science says what it is. Grass-fed beef is the way to go. You have to. So load up on it. That's good. Butter, grass-fed butter. And then this isn't a no-carbohydrate diet, no veggie diet. This isn't like an Atkins where you can just go crazy. You got to add in vegetables. In fact, veggies are nutrients in veggies are better absorbed when they're taken with fat. So you actually use these vegetables that you're taking in, use all the phytonutrients and all that much better. You assimilate that a lot better. So examples of that would be any kind of green leafy vegetable, spinach, kale, romaine, any of that. Just get creative with you can use it in a in soup, like a bone broth. You can put it in salad and just drench it in olive oil and put like a cheese on it. A grass-fed cheese is good with some nuts on top of it. I mean, that would be a great ketogenic meal. Asparagus, and I know some people like Dr. D'Agostino, he says vegetables are my fat delivery system. So like that's how he gets a lot of fats, just cooks the asparagus in butter and takes that. Or cauliflower is a great one because you can make mashed potatoes and it kind of feels like you're cheating a little bit, and you can also get a ton of good fats in there because you just you steam the cauliflower and then you put it in a blender with a lot of butter, grass-fed butter, and some salt and pepper and some garlic, raw garlic, and you got a great little meal there. I know, I'm making myself hungry. I'm going to have to pull out the coconut oil again here in a second. Or also just MCT oils. So those medium chain triglycerides just help you get into ketosis faster, help you better become fat adapted. So those are the three I talked about, the C8, C10, C12, the brain octane, the coconut oil, and then the Quest Nutrition MCT powders. That you have to order online, I'm pretty sure. I don't think you can get that in stores, and you definitely have to order the brain octane online. It's a little bit more expensive. The MCT oil that he makes is really good too. So so mixing those together, a good meal is like a fatty meat and then a salad with olive oil on it. Or you could even make a dessert with it, a ketogenic dessert. One thing you could do is you could go get full fat coconut milk and put in full fat coconut milk, some raw cacao powder, like make it chocolate powder.
Would you call that?
I don't know how you pronounce it. I say cacao powder.
Oh, okay.
So,
it was cocoa, kind of like cocoa.
Cocoa, yeah, but it's cacao powder is what I say. Okay. I call it. I don't know if that's the right way. But, so that makes it chocolate, and then you could put it. I like to stay away from things like stevia when you're doing this because then you're not really changing your taste buds. But this is a dessert. If you like, I need something sweet. Put a few drops of stevia in there. Mix it all up, put it in the freezer for a little bit, and take it out a few hours later, and it's like an ice cream, or like so it's a mousse or something. So.
Quick question from Joel again: is taking omega-3 supplement good enough?
It is if it is a good source, and you gotta be really careful with omega supplements. So if you're going to Costco, or I don't want to put Costco under the bus. Let's say if you're just going some store and you're getting
Dollar General
90-day supply for $20 or $15, that's not a good source. You can almost guarantee that it's not a good source.
Yeah.
One way, if it smells too fishy, that's kind of an indication that it's gone rancid. So with supplements, here's the thing, is that fish is best. I mean, eating the raw thing is the best. It doesn't have to be raw, but eating the real food is the best way to do it. But yeah, supplement. I recommend supplementing with omega-3s, fish oils, but just got to make sure with supplement, the most expensive supplement is the one you either don't use or doesn't work. So you get what you pay for when it comes to supplements. So I would just make sure you're getting a really good source of a supplement.
I personally believe in just good nutrition, and I believe in good nutritional therapy. I believe in using supplements only if you really, for example, vitamin D. Okay, most people don't get enough vitamin D living in this part of the country, in particular in the winter time. Now, most people don't even like going outside in the summertime because it's too dang hot, and they don't like being in the sun very much, because they're afraid of skin cancer, so they don't get enough vitamin D really in the summertime. But, vitamin D in and of itself is not going to be utilized very well unless you're getting a good amount of fat in your system, because vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, yeah, or if you're going outside and you're immediately slathering on the sunscreen to your kids, they're not getting it either. So, get some sun, which is your body's best way to do it. But we talk to patients about almost everybody being on a good vitamin D supplement. It's the same thing. You got to be on a good one. You get what you pay for. But yeah, that's one of those I always recommend, and it just kind of depends. I recommend people get their vitamin D levels checked so we can test, not guess, what you're supposed to be at. Because some people will find out, hey, I'm okay, I can just supplement a regular, like 3,000 IUs, or some people are way under, and we need to supplement much higher than that till you get back to normal, and then supplement the normal level. So,
and once again, that vitamin D is only as good as the amount of fat that you're putting into your system too, because vitamin D is a fat soluble.
That's
so
right.
Just keep that in mind,
That's right.
guys. Anyway, I didn't mean
yeah. Well, that's okay. Is there any other questions? I can't see them, so.
Herbalife.
I'm not familiar with Herbalife. Are you?
Yes, I don't know what. Joel asked the question. That's where I get my supplement. He just typed in another one. That's where he gets the supplement. So you might want to look into that. So he just asked about the. I think he is an Herbalife distributor, so that's why
Gotcha.
he's asking. So he's just asking about that particular product.
Yeah, but another thing about supplements is you're right. If you're you can't supplement your way out of a bad diet.
Absolutely.
So if you're going to eat the standard American diet, you're running your gut, you're not able to absorb most of what you're putting in it there anyway. So you're just going to be having very expensive pee. So
yeah.
So or the other thing. So
you can say it, poop.
You've got to make sure that you have a good diet, and it should be just that. It should be a supplement to a good diet. But yeah, it should be you should be getting most of your nutrition from whole food. That's for sure. I did want to go over cancer,
right,
and ketogenic diet, because this is huge. We're learning. I'm seeing so many more research studies and trials coming out about cancer and ketogenic, the ketogenic or nutritional ketosis. And what they're finding is that it's pretty remarkable. So ketosis is anti-inflammatory, which we know that being inflamed drives cancer. It increases mitochondrial function and enhances mitochondrial function. So there's been dogma in the cancer community that cancer is a genetic disease. Oh, it's in your genes. Well, what we're finding is that's not really true. The science is showing otherwise. The science is showing that your genes load the gun, but it's your lifestyle that pulls the trigger. So have you ever heard of something called epigenetics?
Oh, absolutely. That's going to be my next. That's going to be my next video blog: epigenetics versus genetics.
So I'll do a little teaser. So epigenetics is when your lifestyle can actually turn on and turn off genes. So if you have a cancer gene, great, it's there. If it never gets turned on, it doesn't matter, right? So,
yep.
But if you have that bad lifestyle, that can turn that gene off. But then a good lifestyle can turn it right back off. It can turn on, but then a good lifestyle is going to turn it back off. So what we're finding is it's not so much genes that are the problem. It's not the nucleus that's the problem. It's actually the mitochondrial. It's metabolic function of the cell, how it's metabolizing things. So it's in the mitochondria. And so the ketogenic diet is so effective at enhancing mitochondrial function. It's also anti-angiogenic, and so that means keeps you from creating new blood vessels to go, and that's what happens in tumor cells is more blood vessels to go feed the tumor to get sugar to those cancer cells. So it's anti-angiogenic. It also increases your activity of tumor suppressor genes. So it turns on those tumor suppressor genes. And it's the antioxidant pathways are upregulated. So it's coming at cancer from a whole bunch of different aspects and helping to get rid of cancer. So what I recommend, now if you have cancer, there's a lot of other stuff you need to do, and so I'm not going to go into any of that, but what I recommend more so is about cancer prevention. So once you get fat adapted and you're able to go in and out of ketosis pretty easily, which means you can burn carbohydrates for fuel efficiently, but you can also burn fat for fuel efficiently. And so once you get to that point, and you've done that once, every time you do get back into ketosis, you're going to get back into ketosis easier because your body's going to know what it's doing. Like, okay, no problem, I got this. I know what to do when there's no glucose. So what I recommend is doing that once, staying there for a little bit, and then you can come out of it, start titrating in some good carbohydrates and going more to like a paleo diet, which doesn't restrict carbohydrates, you just naturally do because it's more of a hunter-gatherer type diet.
So what you're
And
talking
then
about is cycling in.
cycling, and this is what I would say just the normal person should do. Not everyone needs to be in ketosis forever, but going in and out of it purposely so that you're ready whenever, whatever happens, to you're fat adapted, you're carb adapted, everything. But also a good thing is to get into ketosis and stay in there for 2 to 3 weeks a few times a year to kill off any precancerous cells your body has. Because listen, all of us have precancerous cells. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It's about how easily your body is able to shut those cancer cells down. So every single day. So every single day you're getting healthier or you're getting sicker. So if we all have precancerous cells and then we're leaving the standard American diet, we're allowing those cancer cells to grow. So doing this, being on a good healthy diet like a regular paleo diet or a modified Atkins diet or modified paleo diet where it's higher fat constantly, and then going into full ketosis 2 to 3 weeks a few times a year, or fasting. Some people do that by fasting for 4 days every quarter. Is really good at keeping precancerous cells down. So because we don't know we have cancer until it's there and it's been there for a long time. So by the time that any symptom shows up, we're sick. We're very, very sick. And now we have to start digging ourselves out of a hole. Why don't we just start doing this proactively and getting into ketosis, let our body do what it was designed to do, and just maintain health instead of trying to dig our way out. So this is a good thing I would definitely recommend to do for multiple things, but specifically precancerous cells.
I'm going to get in a question here. Now, well, it's more of a comment, really. What I read through a lot of Thomas Seyfried's information, I've done a lot of research on him.
Mm-hmm.
He gets into implications of ketosis, how it can reduce the symptoms anyway of epilepsy, of multiple sclerosis, of Parkinson's, of ADHD, Alzheimer's. I mean, you're talking about a lot of neurological, autoimmune type of disorders that people aren't even aware of. I mean, they're going to the doctor, taking in cancer drugs are expensive.
Right.
They are very expensive, and a lot of these medications are expensive, but if people just took the time to do a good plan or cycling plan like you're talking about, man, they would save themselves a lot of money, not in terms of their health, but they'd feel better too. Now it's a little bit of a discipline to get to that point to do the cycling that you're talking to. But man, think of the money you'd save on with your medical expenses.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a big why. If you are money driven, yeah, cancer is expensive, and I don't care what way you do it, it's expensive. If you have great insurance, it's still expensive.
Absolutely.
If you don't want to go the traditional medical model, you better have cash ready on hand and a lot of it ready to fight this thing. So, yeah, the best way to kill cancer is to never get it in the first place, and this is a great way to start doing that.
Another quick question. Okay, and I think you may have already answered this. Person is hypoglycemic. I'm afraid to do this.
So it depends on why you're hypoglycemic. So is it just depends. Typically it'll regulate itself, and it kind of heals the body and helps it not to be like that anymore. But it just depends on why you're doing this. So if you're interested in doing this, I would definitely get in contact with a physician or a dietitian, or we can come do a consult and kind of dig deeper into why you're you're hypoglycemic, and then we can figure out, okay, is this the best plan? Do we need to do something before, or what's the best plan? Because that's not a natural state either. So short answer is it just kind of depends why.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything else there? Now, there's a couple questions I have here. I think you may have talked about this too, relative to sports performance.
Yeah.
Someone is a triathlete, someone is a heavy weightlifter, someone's getting ready for college sports. But man, I don't know, man. I've always been told just to carb load.
Yeah, so the best way, and I hit a little bit, but I didn't finish the point, but Jacob Wilson's lab at University of Tampa, what they found was if you train while in a slight case of ketosis, so you're like 1 millimolar which is you're into solid ketosis but not overboard, for about 8 weeks. Now you can be good athletes that are burning a ton of energy, working out every single day, like the long endurance athletes or serious power lifters, or people getting ready for, like, I don't know, the CrossFit Games or something like that. You're burning and you're working out really intensely. You can be on a more of a modified Atkins diet or modified paleo diet, which is more protein, and still be in ketosis. So that's when you just want to monitor your blood ketone levels. But it's training your body to burn fat for fuel, so that when you're in your big event and the carbs aren't there, you're able to burn fat for fuel. Now, if this is the case, then you want to up your calorie intake. So you want to do, say, increase your calories to like 3,500 calories a day, in that same macro percentage, and just make sure you're still in ketosis. And then, say, 1 week before your event or your lifting meet or CrossFit Games or your big race, you start titrating in carbohydrates. And so then you start refueling your glycogen stores, so that then when the day of the event comes, you're actually even that much stronger. So what they found was, on this diet, they gain more weight and they're actually stronger, less inflamed, able to prolong and go longer in those long endurance athletes when you've trained in ketosis. So like with long endurance athletes, they found that, like, if you train in ketosis, and then during your event, which could be up to 6, 8, 10 hours for some of those long endurance athletes, and then you just slowly titrate in carbohydrates throughout the event, they get the best results. They get better than people that aren't in a ketogenic diet.
Okay,
So
I
it's
know
there.
I know what titrating is, but give a brief description of titrating, because I don't think a lot of people know what that is.
Yeah. So that's just slowly introducing carbohydrates. So when I'm saying, when I thought, in high school or middle school, when we were taught, like, oh, tomorrow's a track meet, let's go carb load. So we'd go out to Italian and just get a huge thing of pasta, with refined grains and breadsticks, and carb load that way.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about good carbohydrates, slowly, and start introducing them back into the diet. Don't go out and just boom a ton of carbohydrates. Slowly start introducing them more through fruit, through you could do things like honey, more natural versions of sugar and those kind of things. So
Okay,
does that make sense?
Yep, a few more questions here, and we're going to wrap it up here in about 3 or 4 minutes, guys. I'm going to read these off real quick, Kayla. So if you want to get into ketosis, do I fast first? For how long? Or do I start eating these foods for a few days before I fast? What is the best plan?
Okay, so if, I'm going to go back and start on Monday. Family in town this weekend, so I can't do it this weekend, but I could, but it would just be very difficult. So Monday, what I'm going to do is I'm going to water fast with some MCTs, like some coconut oil and maybe some bone broth, and just throughout the day, but I'm going to water fast for 3 days, see how I feel, and maybe 4. And then I'm going to go to the ketogenic diet and try to do that for just, it just kind of depends. I'm going to do that until I get into ketosis. So until I hit 1 millimolar on my checker, on my monitor, that's when I'll go and I'll try to stay there for a couple weeks, and then that's when you can pop out. I'll pop out of ketosis by doing more of a paleo diet, and then I'll pop back into it and do it again, so that I'm retraining my body to get into ketosis. So you can do it through fasting, but you don't have to do it through fasting. That's what I'm going to do, because I think it's probably going to be the fastest way to get there for me. But you can also go just straight into a strict ketogenic diet, which is I would download MyFitnessPal on my iPhone, that app, and then I would just make sure I'm getting about 85% of my calories from good fats, and then the rest, the only carbohydrates I should really be getting is from, or you should be getting, is from the vegetables you eat, the green leafy vegetables, the asparagus, the broccoli, those kind of things. You just don't want to eat any, like, any fruit, no fruit, no, like, tuberous vegetables, no tubers, no like no carrots, those kind of things are higher in sugar.
Potatoes, that kind of thing.
No potatoes, so green leafy vegetables, those kind of things.
Okay.
So you can do that to get in ketosis too, and just kind of monitor yourself. You can monitor through, get the blood monitor. You can get the urine strips too. You can do that too. Those are cheaper. You can get those at like CVS or Walgreens, the ketone strips for the urine.
Another question. Do you recommend exercising while fasting? I've always heard not to. Your thoughts?
My thoughts would be, I would say no. Be active. Just go. You should be able to go out there at your normal day, no problem. I would just try to be non-stressed. I would try to stay busy. Don't stay home on your couch. That'll be awful. That's like the fastest way to want to quit your fast, is to do that. I would really do a lot of research on fasting. I don't want to tell you to just jump right into fasting. I would do some research on it and make sure that it's right for you. If you have questions about it, you can call our office at 816-347-1515 or email us at newlifehealthevents@gmail.com, and we can answer some questions. For people that are on the webinar or listen to the webinar, if you call or email us and mention the ketogenic diet webinar, you will receive an exam, a consultation with me in the office for only $40. So we're also going to check out everything in your body too, so that'll all be included for $40. So kind of do a history of what's going on with you and kind of talk from there. So if you're interested in doing that, give us a call or email us, and we can kind of go through some of this more a little bit more in depth.
Okay, I just want to make one more comment on the lady, I think it was Tiffany, asked about the fasting. I've never done a 3 or 4 day fast. I do intermittent fasting every week, and I typically work out when I fast. Now, there's different takes on that, because there's a book called The Primal Diet by Ori Huffmeckler, and he is really big on working out, and in particular doing strength training while you're doing intermittent fasting. Now, he doesn't say about the long-term fasting, but he's really big on the intermittent fasting of it, because it produces better growth hormones, and like you said, it's kind of a cleanser of the body, get your gut flora right. So he's big on the fasting, working out while you're fasting.
Yeah, in fact, I would recommend, I find it a really good way to help get into ketosis, just to, when you're intermittent fasting, or just for your stress hormone levels and everything, to work out right before your first meal. So if you decide you want to intermittent fast, and then I'm going to eat at 2, work out at 1. I mean, it doesn't have to be at 2. You could start your intermittent fasting, eat it in the morning from 7 to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So, but yeah, if you're intermittent fasting, absolutely work out normally, absolutely, because when you're intermittent fasting, you don't necessarily have to decrease the amount of calories you're eating. You just decrease the window.
Right.
So, especially if you're doing, I would maintain your ketogenic macro ratio, so that 80 to 90% fat, while you're doing the times that you're eating during intermittent fasting. But yeah, work out for sure.
Okay.
I'm talking about water fasting. You can still work out. I would just not go crazy, but that's only for a couple days that you're doing that. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Kayla, we appreciate your time, and we hope you come back in the future. And guys, I hope you check out her website and take advantage of the offer that she's making you this evening. I just want to close by thanking everybody by attending tonight. And looking at this slide right here, our next webinar is August the 17th at 8 o'clock. And the topic is the gut your body's second brain, by Dr. Diana Malatnoff. She's also a chiropractor out of Arizona. So she's going to go into a lot of issues on neurological disorders like we talked about tonight, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ADHD, and those sort of things, multiple sclerosis. So make sure you tune in and check that out. And
All right, thanks. Thanks, Roberto.
You guys have a blessed evening. I want everybody also to send me a message how you enjoyed the seminar tonight and things we can do to improve it for you. Good night. God bless.
Good night.